This is the story of a 9/11 eyewitness, Richard A. Siegel, who filmed the World Trade Center from across the Hudson River in Hoboken. His raw footage contains a digital recording of explosions that occurred before each tower fell, indicating that both towers were brought down by controlled demolition along with 7 World Trade. Following numerous pre-collapse explosions, clouds of dust can be seen rising hundreds of feet from the base of the towers. We'll watch as an apparent helicopter rescue results in the collapse of the South Tower. We'll see how the reinforced elevator floors directly below the South Tower impact zone should cause the top section to topple into the street in a genuine collapse. We'll see how the official story violates Newton's 3 laws of motion, the law of inertia, the law of conservation of momentum, and we'll see that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. We'll examine the explosive upward ejection of North Tower debris using the laws of projectile motion. We'll see how the collapsing tower's seismic data in the FEMA report contradicts the law of conservation of energy. Were the laws of science magically suspended during 9/11? Or is the official story a fraud? We'll measure 7 World Trade at free fall speed in a vacuum created by demolition explosions. We'll hear leaseholder Silverstein reveal this truth in a PBS documentary that mysteriously went out of production. Prepare yourself for the classified truth about what actually happened during U.S. War Game Exercise Week. There is a problem with the World Trade Center demolition plan. Firemen have reached the South Tower impact zone and reported by radio that the fire is under control.
Okay, 7 Alpha. Ready, come on over by us. Hey, Ladder, 1-5. We got 2 isolated pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down with 2 lines. Ready? I know that. 78th floor. Numerous 1045, call 1. Chief, what stair you in? South Tower, Adam. South Tower. 478. South Tower. Numerous civilians. We're getting 2 engines up here. 10-4, we're on our way. 7 Alpha to Robbie, command post. Chief Parliament reports on the 78th floor, numerous 1045, code 1. We got isolated pockets of fire. We're going to need 2 hand lines up there, K.
While the brave firemen prepare to extinguish the isolated pockets of fire with 2 hose lines, the evildoers must move up the timetable. If the fires are put out, there will be no reason for the towers to fall.
It was very much like a controlled demolition when you look at it, because the building essentially fell almost vertically down, as if someone had deliberately set blasts to take place to cause the building to fall vertically downward.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was like, if they had detonated.
Yeah,
detonated. They were planning to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running.
The seismic record from Palisades, New York, as published in the FEMA report, indicates massive peak signals of short duration, typical of high-velocity military weapons-grade explosives, that registered 2.1 and 2.3 on the Richter scale. These are 15 times larger than the plane impacts and huge fireball explosions. collapsing debris can be seen forming a tail signal, similar in scale to the impacts, following the explosive peaks that run off the bottom of the chart for the North Tower. The towers were made up of heavy steel that had been designed for superior strength.
High-strength steel that had not been available before made this possible.
Building cranes were positioned on the internal steel framework made up of 47 heavy steel supports, indicating just how sturdy this internal structure was. However, the official theory explaining the collapse of the towers claims that an ordinary office furniture fire could actually be responsible for weakening heavy steel to the point of collapse. Imagine all the chefs who cook over a hot blue flame without melting their frying pans. The idea that a much weaker office furniture fire could cause any harm to these steel frame towers is pure fantasy, and therefore required a suitable dramatization to fool the public. A respected science show, Nova, faced the challenge of convincing the public that the impossible was actually the only possible explanation. To do this, it was first necessary to describe the steel supports in the towers as thinner and weaker than they actually were.
But the tall vertical columns of the inner core and the outer walls were like freestanding stilts, until Robertson tied them together with floor trusses.
The next step was to create a pancake collapse simulation. Since this is impossible using the laws of science, it was first necessary to remove the outer wall supports that carry 40% of the tower's weight. Since office fires would have negligible effect on the steel structure, it was also necessary to remove all floor connections with the internal support structure. Finally, the simulation would run. But will 110 floors really collapse like pancakes in 10 seconds? Let's time it to find out. The first floor to collapse took 1.5 seconds to fall 12 feet. The second floor was faster at 1 second for a total of 2.5 seconds. As the gravity collapse starts to speed up, ignoring the hundreds of internal and external welded connections supporting each floor, we see 10 floors have collapsed after 6 seconds. This clearly indicates that the official pancake collapse theory cannot begin to explain how the buildings fell in just 10 seconds, and is so unreasonable that it should be immediately rejected out of common sense. Yet it has become the conventional wisdom of the day, and we must all pause and ask ourselves how this could have come about. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the relatives and our prayers to the victims in the towers. Victims like Edna Cintron, who was in her office working in the North Tower on the morning of 9/11. This photo of Edna appeared in the official FEMA report analyzing the damage to the North Tower. She bravely climbed through the debris at the impact zone to wave to news helicopters and let them know that the fires had gone out and the survivors were awaiting rescue. Perhaps she believed that the worst was over and that firefighters would soon arrive. After all, steel frame buildings have never collapsed anywhere in the world before 9/11. Yet on this day, 3 steel frame structures would free fall at the speed of gravity, normally only possible with demolition explosives that take months of preparation. As the official reports state, the jet fuel would have burned away within minutes, and we can see that indeed the fire looks like it is going out on its own. An accompanying diagram illustrates the interlocking steel grid that made up the outer framework of the towers.
I believe that the building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners because this structure is like the mosquito netting on your screen door, this intense grid, and the jet plane is just a pencil puncturing that screen netting. It really does nothing to the screen netting.
Perhaps you are not easily fooled by disinformation. Let's try a simple Q&A to test your awareness. Question: which steel frame tower is more likely to collapse to the ground? Answer: neither. No steel frame tower has collapsed anywhere in the world. Conclusion: if the right tower didn't fall to the ground, the left tower shouldn't fall to the ground either. Problem: black smoke and no significant flames indicate that fire was not responsible. Solution: the World Trade Center steel frame towers were demolished using pre-planted controlled demolition explosives. Note: tall buildings use steel frames precisely to resist collapse due to fire. So why did 3 World Trade Center steel frame towers fall to the ground on 9/11?